Welcome to the Lubbock or Leave It podcast, a recruiting specific podcast on RedRaidersports.com. I'm joined by Ben Golan as always, but before we get into it, we want to thank our title sponsor, Carnley Properties. Clayton Carnley and his team will get you guys taken care of in the greater Austin area. Any of your real estate needs in the city, in the country, farmland, you name it, they can help. And you need somebody experienced on your side. When you're making a big purchase like that. We want to thank Clayton and his team. Again, Carnley Properties is making this podcast possible, and we're going to put all their contact information when we post this on the site and on YouTube. So, Ben, how's it going, man? We're almost there. This is a little more than a week out from football. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing well, just getting closer. I posted today that we're going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be 10 days away. So it's pretty crazy to think about, we wait this whole off season, but here we are. And then, it's all, Kool-Aid until the first drive of the game where you go 3 and out. And then, you got the pitchforks, but no, man, it's good. I'm excited.
Anything is possible. Before we jump into the recruiting topics of the week, if you will, we ended last podcast by me asking when they would name the starting quarterback. That happened today, Tyler Shough. Not a huge surprise, but again, somebody that they went after. And clearly there's a lot of change in the offseason, as it pertained to quarterback. You knew that Henry Columbia had gotten some experience. You knew that Smith would be healthy. Morton came in with all the recruiting accolades. But you really, really needed somebody, especially in year 3, to help kind of turn things around. So to me, the storyline of Shuck having something to prove coming in as an Oregon transfer, and maybe coming in after the Justin Herberts of the world, and I'm not going to remember the other guy anyway, and maybe not being that all everything at Oregon for whatever reason. He's going to come in and it sounds like from Wells's comments, he's commanded the room. He's gotten the respect of his teammates, and they're ready to roll. So there's a common denominator there is Shuck wants to prove that he's that guy, with all the national ranking and accolades coming out of high school, and Coach Wells and his staff are really trying to win in Lubbock. So I don't know, any thoughts before we jump into the recruiting topics on Mr. Shuck?
Yeah, it was the obvious move. I think everyone kind of expected this. You see Wells's quote, he is well respected by his teammates, a tireless worker, and has developed a strong understanding of what we want to do on offense. And so, I just think this was his job to lose. He didn't do anything to lose it. And then, even with the meeting with the media today, Wells did say that Henry Columbia's the backup. So, you got Smith and Morton, battling for third string over there. And I'm just excited to see how Sonny Cumbie uses Tyler Shough, because he's very talented. He has a huge arm. He's 6'5". He can move. So, a lot of possibilities there. And I'm just excited to see it on the field here in 10 days.
Yeah, and then we talk recruiting, so I think it's a month or so past off season. We've talked about a multitude of things, but we touched on it. This is a kid that did have the accolades out of high school, right? And is in this day and age of football, he's the one that gets the NIL endorsements and has the marketability and that ceiling, if you will, if he plays well, to truly, become something. And what I mean by that as well, kind of tying it back to recruiting as always, is we talked about that Arizona, fertile recruiting ground, and how, whatever conference realignment, shakes out to be, if Tyler Shuck's successful at Texas Tech, that puts Texas Tech in the eyeballs of a bunch of kids that look up to Tyler Shough from the state of Arizona, so on and so forth. I mean, we could go on and on about kids that came out of the state of Arizona, Brock Purdy, Spencer Rattler, in conference. I'm sure there's others, but there's other QB recruits coming out of Arizona. There's several talented players coming out of Arizona. So again, tying it back to recruiting, when Shuck and Texas Tech have success, I think that's a bonus on the recruiting trail, especially in a year where they're not taking a quarterback in this class. It's becoming pretty evident. And so I talked about his ceiling earlier. That would just be bursting onto the scene, being a guy putting up those Madden stats. I don't know, I guess last thoughts on Shuck. What do you think is success for someone like that? As we just look at individually on the field.
I think he wants to win. I think Matt Wells wants to win. I think the fans want to win. I think obviously he wants to play well and put up a bunch of yards and touchdowns, but at the end of the day, would he rather do that and have a losing record, or maybe lead the team to a winning record and play well enough to do that? I mean, I don't know. To me, it just comes down to wins and losses at the end of the day. If Shuck is healthy, if he's on the field and the Red Raiders are winning, you can't ask for much more from a Tech perspective. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned last year was his first year starting at Oregon. It was a COVID year, shortened season. I think the receivers, there were some reports that maybe they weren't as good as they have been in the past. So it was, he still started every game. And so I think maybe it's a little unfair to say he didn't play as well, or, whatever the reasons were, he had to leave Oregon.
Sure.
But this is just, a brand new opportunity, and the talent is around him to be successful, at receiver, led by Eric Ezukanma, who's first team all conference, obviously.
Well, before we preview the entire season, we'll stop short at that. But definitely, nothing says the football season's here like a press release like that today. So definitely wanted to touch on it. Getting back to recruitment, maybe we didn't see a press release on what we're going to talk about today because of the plans to announce Mr. Shuck as the starter, and maybe they just wanted to kind of spread it out evenly. But Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Beau Davidson and, the potential addition to the recruiting staff here, because you broke that news a couple days ago now.
Yeah, it's something that we reported. Beau Davidson, he's the director of recruiting up at Virginia Tech. He's been there for several years, and Texas Tech was looking to replace Aaron Hodges. He left to Louisville, earlier this summer. And I think, Coach Wells was looking for the right fit. And I think a guy as experienced as Davidson, who's done this for several years and has had a lot of success, I think that opportunity, once, Davidson showed a willingness to accept that, I think it was a no-brainer for Matt Wells to add him to the staff. And he's a guy, you just look at Virginia Tech's commitment list. Right now, they have 3 commitments out of Texas, which, doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's Virginia Tech. Like, this is nowhere close to home for him there's a quarterback, Alex Orji, from here in DFW, and then a couple of offensive linemen. And then you just look at the history, just look at your own roster. Robert Wooten was a guy who Texas Tech wanted. He ends up at Virginia Tech, probably because, not because of Beau Davidson, but probably had a big hand in doing that. And he's just a guy with a lot of connections. He played at North Texas. He's coached at, Howard Payne in Brownwood, Texas. He's coached in the Texas high school ranks. And so, just a return to home for Coach Davidson once it's official. And then he'll be added to the recruiting staff with Preston Pearson and Jessica Rinn and Ashton Washington. That'll be the 4-man recruiting team, once that's official.
Yeah. And, for a quick recap, I know you mentioned Coach Hodges, he was here, call it 3, potentially 4 months, and then took a position at Louisville where he also has a coaching role or a grad assistant role, which, is ultimately a goal. So that's why the timing didn't work out. But I think the real story wasn't with Hodges or even now with Davidson. It's a headline, but I think the real story is adding the head count. We talked about that a lot, about how that could impact Texas Tech recruiting and how, maybe you won't see the results right away. But over time, when you've got somebody else helping you engage with recruits, somebody else, especially when we talk about Davidson, that has coached Texas high school football and that has clearly made that an emphasis in what he does. And so to me, when you've played in the state, you've played collegiately, coached at high school, and now you're coming back to recruit at a Big 12 college program, I think that's going to pay some dividends. Now, I don't know much about him as a recruiter. I know that we've kind of mocked the Texas to Virginia Tech thing. You mentioned Wooten transferring back. I just try to look at things, from maybe a more positive outlook, because recruiting, it's one of those things where you'll You'll get a few noticeable changes like within a 2 to 3 month period, in terms of adding someone, maybe making those connections, maybe a few new offers, who knows. But the reality of the situation is you're not going to see those. You're not going to see any of that come to fruition until maybe the 2023 class. And especially now you look at 7 commitments. Last year, they ended up taking 12 high school kids, and then the rest were transfers. So this year, you could be looking at 3, potentially 4 more commitments, with the way things are going right now. So I don't want the expectation for people listening here to be like, oh, Beau Davidson, he's come in and there's going to be 20 more offers and 10 more commitments. I don't, I'd temper expectations there. But if you're looking to fill a role, I think you could do a lot worse than taking someone away from a Power 5 program, bringing them back home, and clearly somebody with a lot of connections throughout the state. So all of that's really on the surface level. We still got to get to know Coach Davidson and really dig in. I know you mentioned the Virginia Tech commitments. What I would say is, I bet you if we looked at the offer list, it's pretty rich with kids that they've recruited and offered. So that could also pay dividends as we kind of look into those different degrees of connections. But I don't know, anything else on Coach Davidson we should know, Ben?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Just, one other small thing that I'm looking right now at his Twitter profile. And I know you and I are big on social media and having a presence, and that's definitely Coach Davidson. Just looking at the month of August, several, tweets of the Virginia Tech Stadium, videos, different things to get the recruits and the fans engaged. So we both agree that that's a big deal, and that's good to see also.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's it's one of those things, you depends on which side of the bed you wake up that day. But me, as you gotta just ask yourself, as silly as as it seems to you, for all these videos to be posted and all the social media stuff to be consistently done, you really have to kind of challenge yourself and put yourself in the shoes of a 16, 17-year-old. I mean, that's what they do in their spare time. They're on social media. They're on various apps, right? We've started, I say we, right? Ben has mostly started our Instagram and kind of kept that afloat. And that's really where we've talked about this offseason as well. Things really migrating from a communication or an interest standpoint. Ultimately, even when we write an article about a kid, they want to see it posted. They want to see the likes, the retweets, all that. And so, for a coach to get that, for a coach to kind of take those different avenues and promote the program, and then again, having someone that is an extra set of hands that, didn't exist last year, that's the positive thing, because I think it could have been very easy, Ben, for them to say, hey, man, that sucked. We lost Coach Hodges. Let's focus on the season and let's readdress this later. But no, I mean, they went out and they found somebody, they executed, and, he's going to be able to come in right before the season. And there you go. So I would say kudos for that for sure. But I don't have anything else to add. Like I said, definitely need to do some more research. Even after you'd posted that, really just read the bio and tried to understand a few things. I'll dig into the offers. And then certainly, like I usually do, I'll just do the whole round robin with some of the high school coaches that we know, get some comments and see, what they think Mr. Davidson's all about.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree.
Cool. So we said we were going to talk about something else.
Maurion Horn.
That's right. Sorry.
You and I have a game on Friday in Mansfield. Broken Arrow, Oklahoma is playing Mansfield Legacy. It's not, too often you see those cross-state matchups, but
right.
We have one here right close to home, and it was too good of an opportunity for us to not go see Texas Tech's 4-star commitment, recently ranked number 218 in the country in the new Rivals 250.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, more so it's, you may think, why do both of you guys need to be there? Well, we're really not going to get another chance to see Maurion Horn, right down the street for months. And so we wanted to do that. If we get a chance to go to Broken Arrow later in the year, then that's a bonus. But what I'm looking to do is truly evaluate the player. We can talk about number 218 in the country till we're red in the face. But the bottom line is, we talk about Texas Tech commitment, athlete. Anytime you hear athlete, you want to see how much he's playing of each position, where he looks comfortable. But for me, I just want to see the speed in person. When I watch the tape, when I watch the highlights from Rivals camp, He's just one of those kids that the speed pops off the tape. And so I want to see that in person. And, we talked about it last week after, I went out to a practice and you went and saw Huck Graham. You want to see these kids that have the offers, that have that ranking, you want to see them stand out. And so I bet you, anything that, especially first game going in the season, and then you add the element of going up against, the Dallas team, being from Oklahoma, they're going to be up for this game. So I'm interested to go and see it. And, last thing I'll say is I know he plays running back. I know he plays receiver. I know he returns kicks and punts. But ultimately the Tech coaches are looking at him on defense. So I want to see him go up against, I need to look up Legacy's roster. Truth be told, I don't know if there are any, 3-star or 4-star guys that are on this other team, but he needs to be able to kind of take their best guy, lock him down a little bit, and get in there and mix it up on defense too.
Yeah, you said everything that I wanted to say. The only other thing is maybe getting an update with him. It's been probably 6 or 7 weeks since he committed, just to get an update. How are things going with the Tech coaches? Is he still, talking to any other schools, visit plans, just, those general updates. I'm just interested, just seeing where his head's at going into the year.
His thoughts on Afghanistan, just any other current news. No, but I mean, I think it's I kind of joke about it, but also I was thinking like NIL or conference realignment. I mean, we're there at the end of the game. How much of that do we really get in? But truth be told, you and I keep in touch with these guys, but it's not like we're just slamming them with questions like that just yet. And so I know you've had a conversation that with another commit about conference realignment and kind of what shakes out. And, they really can't control any of that. But certainly you look at, we're talking about Maurion Horn, this really the crown jewel of the class right now, right? So from a ratings or rankings perspective. And so kind of interested to get his thoughts. Clearly these guys committed to Tech for good reason. But right now there's a lot of things that are out of Tech's control with conference realignment that, if it's making these kids second guess that decision, we want to try to work that into the conversation. I guess all that to say it's not a very easy thing to do.
And maybe we'll have some news on that soon, with the Pac-12 saying today they'll have a decision by the end of the week on whether they, want to add some teams or not. I guess it doesn't, to me, it just didn't sound all that promising that they were going to do that with the whole alliance deal today, but that's a discussion for another pod.
Yeah, definitely. And all that stuff changes on a daily basis. I think in my experience, I know this is like a random example, but I mean, I covered Baylor for Rivals when, that interim coach was there and they had the same commitment for I think it was 16 months. Right. And you'd be surprised. I mean, they're offering kids, they're hosting kids, and you're asking them, hey, well, I know they've been in the news for this. How does that impact? Oh, well, I don't follow that, or blah, blah, blah. So even with conference realignment, it's interesting to the fan and you're following all these things on a weekly basis. But I would 100% guarantee that, injected with truth serum, some of these kids probably don't even follow that stuff, right? They know that Texas and OU are going to the SEC, but they don't follow you ask them about Alliance, they'd be like, what are you talking about? You ask them about, so-and-so going to the Pac-12, they'd be like, I haven't heard that. They're really just kind of focused on football right now. So anyway, but all that to say, I mean, it's starting to get real. And shortly thereafter, we'll figure out what our next move is, but definitely getting to see Maurion Horn this weekend. Hopefully we'll see that announcement on Davidson going into the weekend. And like we said, we'll dig into his past a little bit more and put something up on the site. Ben, anything else recruiting wise that we are not thinking of right now?
Got a couple basketball visitors I posted about, excited to talk to them. I know the fans are excited to hear Denzel Aberdeen and Lamar Washington, but hopefully I can catch up with them over the weekend and I'll have those stories for y'all.
Yeah, man, no AAU stories from you lately. When are you backpacking it again?
No comment.
No comment. All right. It's all right, guys. Well, next week we will dig into the football matchup a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about who we'll see on the field and what we're thinking going into game 1 of the season. But for Ben Golan, I'm Matt Clare. This has been the Lubbock or Leave It podcast on Red Raider Sports. And again, thanks to Carmelite Properties for sponsoring the pod. Please check out their info for any real estate needs in the greater Austin metro area. See you guys.